Yay!
Hello. Hello. Welcome back to a very it feels like an impromptu. Like we here, like pop in,
Does
like hey.
it? I feel like
We talked about it, but it's like, oh, we here. Hey y'all.
yeah, yeah, like we knew it was coming.
Right.
Yeah.
We will be talking today about A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge.
Yes.
I have to say I'm very conflicted with this movie because I feel like it's a very good sequel to Nightmare
Right.
on Elm Street.
Right.
But it is my least favorite in the franchise. As far
Man.
as like its rewatch value is very low to me. For me, it's just low for me. Like if it's on TV, I won't stop. Well, first of all, I don't really always see it on TV. Like I
Right.
can never catch it on streaming or TV of like it's on. Like, oh man, it's on. It's around Halloween time, it's on. It's like you gotta really search for this movie.
Yeah, you really
So
do.
it's really like it has a low watch value for that. And then like I said, it's not my go-to as far as memorable wise. But I can appreciate the follow-up that it is to the first one. So what are your thoughts of it? What's your first memory of it?
Um, it made me afraid of school buses.
Mm,
I can tell you
I
that.
will say the opening scene was my favorite. Like
Yeah.
it is iconic just across the board of as far as sequels go.
Not only that, but it's the best opening scene in the franchise. I stand
Very,
10
I
toes on
mean,
it.
such a great opening scene. It's
Yeah.
really good. It really gets you going of like right into scary, scary town.
I just I
It's so
feel
good.
like I feel like this is like in my top 5 nightmare movies. I
Okay.
just I feel like a lot of people sleep on it, and I think it's because it's a male lead. I think
Yeah.
going from Nancy
Yeah.
to Jesse,
Yeah.
it's a hard drop off. It is. It is
Yeah.
what it is. Not
Yeah.
that Mark
It's
Patton isn't a very good
yeah.
actor,
Yeah.
but it
It's
is
a
just
sleeper. I feel like it's one of those movies where you skip it every time. When you go back and watch it, it's actually pretty fire. Like it's actually really good.
yes.
Like
I
it's a
I
low key, it's a sleeper. It's one of them sleeper hits, you
yeah,
know.
I really feel like people just weren't and still aren't receptive to like a male scream queen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that this movie is so queer coded, I think that's the
Hmm.
reason why people push it away because
Absolutely. Listen, all of that went over my head when I was watching it when I was younger. But now
right.
revisiting it, I'm like, oh, I really like it. And I want to love it. It's just the other movies have a special place
See,
in my heart.
this is like a special one for me because I feel like this is the only Nightmare movie, and I never count New Nightmare
Yeah. Yeah.
for the record as like a Nightmare franchise. I always feel like it's a standalone.
Yes.
But when I say this, take that into context. But
Yes.
I feel like the second one is the most complicated and written script
Mm-hmm.
out of the franchise
Mm-hmm.
because it is so queer coded, and the fact that the queerness is a part of Jesse's nightmare,
Mm-hmm.
I think speaks volumes to how well it
Mm-hmm.
was written.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a lot of heterosexual people, that is a nightmare in
Absolutely.
itself.
Absolutely. And back then, you talk about back then too.
Yeah, and Freddie being the embodiment of that nightmare, I think that it is
Mm-hmm.
chef's kiss for because I'm all about a good written. I like to dig for stuff,
Yes, absolutely.
so I always feel like this is a good time. Plus, this is where Kevin Yeager took over for special effects and gave
Mm-hmm.
us the iconic Freddy look that we love. So that's another
Mm-hmm.
reason why I love it because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like this was the blueprint for how Freddy would look for the rest of the franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, a lot to love. Lots to love about this movie.
Yeah. But I tell you what, comparing the ratings to the first one. So the original Nightmare on Elm Street, It currently has a 7.4 out of 10 rating on IMDb, 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, 76% on Metacritic. So that's the first one. First
Yeah.
one, bam, hit it out the park. People seem to love it. This second one drops down a little bit. So it currently has an IMDb rating of 5.4 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes has 42%, and Metacritic is at 43%. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
This movie was released, what, 1985?
Yeah.
November 1st, 1985. The 80s wasn't that long ago, but it was such a different time, which I feel like they they were trailblazing something. They were onto
Yeah.
something then, which I'm glad they did, because it broadens so much right now in horror for men, women, queer people. Like it just it really it's the trailblazer.
Yeah. And then finding
Yeah.
out so many people involved with the movie were gay or queer.
Yep.
I feel
Yep.
like the only thing that I don't like about the history of this movie is the fact that the writer was just so indifferent to the fact that he was writing this shit. Like, even
Mhm.
now, if you even
Mhm.
watch Scream Queens, and when him and Mark Patton have that sit down, like, it's like he still doesn't want to just, like, in the documentary,
Mhm.
right? Never Sleep Again, he's like, yeah, it was supposed to be subtext, it was supposed to be subtle, but he still just will never come out and just say, like, yes, I wrote this movie as a closeted person, because that's
Yep.
literally what it is.
That's
But
literally what it is. Yep.
I appreciate it for pushing the envelope the way that it did. It
Yeah.
gave us and I feel like the other main reason why people hate this movie. I'm sorry, y'all. I got my laptop in my bed. It is just shaking like a hooker in church. I feel like the main reason people don't like this movie is for one particular moment, and I can agree that it's not good, but I don't feel like it tanks the movie,
Yeah.
which is Freddy coming out into the real world at the pool party. I mean, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like once that happened, people kind of just don't appreciate what it is.
Yeah.
But all jokes aside, if you just remove that part of the movie, because it really
Mhm.
isn't like
Mhm.
a essential or
Yeah.
influential part of the movie, you can really
Yeah.
take that scene out of the movie,
Yeah.
and the movie flows perfectly.
It is, yeah. And I was one of those people that was kind of taken aback when he came into, like,
Yeah,
I'm not even gonna lie, I was taken aback. But I also have such an appreciation for the franchise in itself that I can remove that scene and be like, yeah, solid movie. Solid movie. I
absolutely.
personally, I would give that movie like a 7.5 out
Yeah.
of 10.
If you
For
took
real.
that, because if you took that part out of the movie, it flows well, because
Mhm.
they did dismantle the lore, so I
Mhm.
can't get like
Mhm.
biased and be like they didn't fuck up the lore, because they did.
Mhm.
But Jack Shoulder, being the asshole that he is, and
Mhm.
thinking that
Mhm.
he could be better than Wes Craven, took some risks,
Right.
you
And
know.
I mean, you want to you want to try to take risks.
Yes.
You want to, like, people don't understand when you are in the creative world, you're gonna get backlash if you don't take the risks.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna get backlash if you do take the risk. There is no win-win. So you might as well just authentically do it.
I just
And
always feel like it didn't make sense to bring him into the real world. And this is my strongest critique of the movie. I'm
yeah,
telling you, I'm a harp on this, because
yeah.
I feel like I can understand how a nightmare film like this ruined the movie. So
Mhm.
it didn't make any sense how he even got in the real world. Like, after
Right.
we watched, I'm like, how did this even happen? Like, is there a scene missing?
Yeah.
Like, the pieces don't add up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I always felt like outside of Dream Warriors, and outside of the Lisa Wilcox
Yeah.
duo, right?
Yeah.
Because she's in
Yeah.
two of those movies.
Mhm.
This is probably the strongest written characters we have in the franchise.
It was. It really was. The characters were
Yeah.
written very well.
And these are like the strongest friendships as well,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
Grady, Lisa, and Jesse, I felt like were really like friends.
Mhm.
Like,
Yep.
like like how we talked about in the first one, how like Nancy, Glenn, Tina, and Rod didn't seem like they
Mhm.
really fit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Grady, Jesse seemed like frenemies that turned into friends.
Yeah.
Right? Because they weren't really feeling each other at first, but they turned into friends. And
Mm-hmm.
then Lisa being this sweet Meryl Streep lookalike girl next door that Jesse was like, I don't know if I like you or if I like you, but I'm gonna weigh my options.
Exactly.
That's some real shit, especially in high school. Like he was just trying to figure out what was best for him. And not for nothing, I always felt like he would have ended up with Grady had Grady not died.
I thought that too. After rewatching it a bazillion times. I kind of felt the same way. Like,
I always
am I
shipped
tripping?
them.
Like, I had a moment like, am I tripping? Do I feel like if he
No. I have always shipped Jesse and Grady because I'm not trying to be funny, but like Lisa always gave me like my hag like vibes. Like it was more like Will and Grace with them. You see what I'm saying? Like they were the original Will and Grace to me.
Yep.
And I think they said that in the documentary. Like that's really what they gave off. They never gave off like even the scene where they're like making out, it just didn't feel right. And I think that he would have ended up with Grady had Grady not died. Like in that scene where before Grady dies, and you know, spoiler alert, whatever. But it seemed like they like if he hadn't had his like monologue of like something's trying to get into my body, and Grady's like, and you want to sleep with me. I feel like that scene could have went a different way. Like that could have been like the love scene, but I don't think America was ready for it.
Absolutely. In 1985, hell no, they wasn't ready for that.
Like that to me should have been the love scene.
Yeah. It could have. I feel like they could pull it off now.
Yeah.
But back then, absolutely not. It would not have. Like I feel like back then there was such a fear of like you're never going to work in this town again type vibes.
Yeah, which I mean, essentially is what happened to him anyway.
You know? Yeah,
it happened to him anyway from being in this movie.
Absolutely right. It really did.
There were so many things that happened, and I don't know. I get such delight when I see minorities of any sort get shine. So for me, this movie is just like a big deal. I love it.
Yeah,
I love the coach, like the coach situation. The coach being undercover. You know what I mean? And like, I know like it's not funny that he got whipped to death, but the fact that like he was like strung up and got hit with all those balls and everything, like it was just so funny to me.
It was.
To use like to like, you know what I mean? Like I can't sit here as a black person and love shit like The Blackening, but not appreciate A Nightmare on Elm Street too, because stereotypes are a part of society, and seeing them play off of those tropes,
of course,
it's still delightful to me. But no, I feel like this is a really good movie. I feel like this is the most sinister we've seen Freddy as well.
Yeah. This was, you know, we talked about how in the first one, Freddy wasn't physically seen a lot in that movie, but the vibe was still scary.
Yeah, he was a presence.
He was that presence. He was. I would compare him more so if we didn't see him. I'd say he was more like an entity. Like this is a thing that we should be afraid of.
Yeah.
But to see him a little bit more in Freddy's Revenge was really good to me. I enjoyed that.
I appreciate that as well. I appreciate the fact that he was still like, this is where we start to understand that the house is its own character.
Yes.
Right? Because everything was always like hot and melting and catching on fire. The bird, even though that shit's hilarious. The bird situation, like there's a presence about the house, and there's a presence of Freddy, and they kind of like blended that into now you're going to see him more. And I love that. Plus, like I said, the special effects for A1 when he pulls that brain out.
Yes, that is one of my favorite.
Yeah, you got the body, but I got the brains. Like that shit is terrifying.
Yes, so terrifying, but so fun. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared.
I have that scene behind me because it's so iconic to me.
Yes, oh my gosh,
the stairwell, and not only that, but him like caressing and toying with him. Like he's like in this movie, Freddy's more seductive.
Yeah.
He's very seductive, and he understands that Jesse is like hiding. And that's the genius of it is I'm going to prey on your worst nightmare, which is everyone finding out that you possibly like boys.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm seducing you. Because like even in that scene with them by the staircase, And every scene that he has with Freddy is almost like a siren call,
Yes.
where he's just like so
Mhm.
infatuated and like
Mhm.
enamored that he can't pull away.
Yep. Yep.
Because like there's something about Jesse that I love as a character, because he doesn't always seem like he's afraid of Freddy.
Right.
It seems like he's almost afraid that he wants Freddy to be a part
Yeah.
of him.
Yeah. Definitely a different fear. He had a different type of fear.
Yeah, because I
It
always felt
wasn't
like
our type of fear. We like this nigga about to kill you. It was like,
no,
oh,
because I
oh,
always felt like Jesse
yeah.
felt empowered by Freddy. And I only say that because after rewatching it and the scene
Mhm.
with the coach, the scene with even with his sister,
Mhm.
like whenever Jesse is near the glove or has the glove, he seems almost like empowered. And
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
that scares him, that that type of a person or
Right.
that type of a lifestyle is empowering to him. Like I said, it's just so layered to me
Yeah.
that it's like, okay, I'm empowered by being homosexual. I'm empowered by embracing darkness. I'm empowered by these things, but I don't want to be.
Exactly. And that's scary in itself to be in this internal struggle.
Because,
And
yeah,
I
'cause-
feel like they did, and this is why I really like this movie, because they did such a great job walking us through this, this internal struggle that he was having.
because how many, I
We
mean,
could
not,
feel that he, once he got by the glove, we felt it as viewers of like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
like what is going
And I don't want to
on?
speak for anyone who's a part of that community because I'm not. And,
Mhm.
but I've heard so many times through people I've known that in the beginning they didn't want to be. That's
Me
not
too.
what
Yep,
they
I've
didn't
heard that
want
too.
to.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
I didn't want to be gay. I prayed. I went to church. I
Mhm.
talked to this person. I dated
Yep.
girls or
Tried to
guys, and I
fight
just
it.
didn't
Yep.
want
They
to
tried to
do it.
fight it.
And I really feel like this movie like embodies that.
Oh
Plus,
yeah.
we have, if we're going to talk about a queen in her own right that gets no love, it's fucking Lisa.
Mhm.
Lisa as a character is like the friend you always want. She didn't judge him.
Mhm.
She loved him. She didn't care
Mhm.
what his sexuality was. She was like, I just
Mhm.
want to be down.
Exactly.
If you want to be down, I'm here. If you don't, we're still
Yep.
friends. Like
Yep.
she
Like a true
always
friend, you
she
know?
always had his back.
Yep. Yep. True friend,
And even when like people was low key like her friend, right? Like that was always like trying to hook her up with Jesse and low
Exactly.
key was judging her for liking Jesse. She didn't
Right.
get it. She was like, no, I like this dude. Like it's
Right. Right.
you know what I mean? And I'm happy that she was the hero.
Mhm.
You know, you don't always get the woman say. I mean, you get the woman saving the guy in everyday life, but in
Oh yeah.
like horror movies, specifically back then, you didn't really get the woman like saving the man. It was
Right.
always
That was that broke a trope in within itself, because back in the day, all horror movies they had a blueprint.
yeah, they had the standalone girl, but it
Yes.
was never like, okay, I'm saving him.
They
And
never, yeah.
and
It
she
was always
saved
the opposite, the other way around.
and she saved him just by loving him for him.
Yep. That with which is a message really within itself.
Yeah.
It's so layered. It's so layered of like acceptance, you know, wrapped into like self-worth,
Hmm.
and just the internal struggle.
Yeah.
Such a good undertone. Like the undertones in this movie was great. I don't know why they don't have this movie on streaming more, or they don't show it. We aired on TV. I just don't know why, because it's such a good movie. Like it's just a really good story. If you really, and I feel like you can watch this movie without having little to you got to have some knowledge of the first one, but you can watch this one and be like, oh, okay, I kind of caught up, like I kind of know what I missed in the first one.
Yeah, and then the other thing too that I feel like a reason why a lot of people don't like this movie is because like when you stack it up in the franchise,
Mm-hmm.
this doesn't have the best kills.
Nope.
This is
Nope.
more story driven.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yep. It does. Yep. And that's my only kind of critique on it too. The kills weren't as memorable.
no.
um the thing for me, which I'm getting over it, and I kind of take it case by case, but I didn't like a lot of sequels that did not include the people or someone from the original. Like I like sequels that pick up where they left off from the first one. Like, let's get me back in the fields. This one was a whole new group of kids. You know, Freddy was still Freddy, but it was a whole new group of kids, and that bothers me when I'm trying to follow. You know,
Right.
sometimes follow.
And that's
I'm
what I'm
getting
saying.
better with it, but
Like,
back in the day, like when I tried to rewatch this as a teenager, I was just like, like no, where is
yeah, I feel like,
there? You know,
okay, this is how I feel like this. I feel
hmm
like, first of all, it doesn't make sense in the context of, is Jesse's
hmm
family a part of the Elm Street kid family?
hmm
Because they just moved into that house.
hmm
We never really get a backstory on, like, if Jesse's ever been a part of this community, are his
right,
parents involved?
right,
Because
right.
then that's when you, like I said, you switch the lore, and now we're focused on, okay, well, anybody who inhabits the house is going to be haunted by Freddy. Okay, fine.
hmm
I could get behind that. But because we bookended with part 3, and
Yeah.
we get even more a new lore of, okay,
hmm
he's going after all the Elm Street kids, it doesn't make sense in the sandwich. And I feel like that's another reason, because it's really easy to go from 1 to 3.
Yes, yes. I'm glad you said it because I never could find out why I skip over 2.
Yeah,
Like
it's
there's
just
a
so
natural
easy.
thing in me where I just skip over it and go straight to 3 and 4. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So it's like,
3 feels like a real sequel, because we're
yeah,
sticking with the fact that Freddy's killing off all of the kids of the parents that has something to do with Elm Street.
which makes so much sense.
And
Like
we never
cool.
get that from part 2. We never get an
Yeah,
answer on,
yeah,
is his family a part of this, or
yep,
does he just live
yep.
there? Because all we got from part 2 was the diary.
That's it. That's it. Yep,
Do you know what I mean? So I
yep.
feel like I
I
feel
would,
like that's what thinks it.
you know, after the first one, I personally would have loved for them to dive a little bit deeper in the parents that killed him and his revenge. Like I get it, and when you have a and then when you have it in the title, Freddy's Revenge,
Yeah,
you
where's the
literally
revenge?
think, like you literally think he's about to get revenge. Continue, like, and it just did not
Yeah, like where's
do it for
the actual revenge?
where's
Because
the
we don't
revenge
even
for
know
it.
what he has against this kid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, do you think they went in the direction that they went in because um of the behind the scenes, like the casting, the director, writer, all that? Do you think that played a role in their why they chose that direction that they chose?
I'm gonna tell you what is the reason why 2 is the
Mm-hmm.
way that it is. And it's
Mm-hmm.
fucking Bob Shea.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Shea is like such a control freak.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact, like, let's just go ahead and get into it. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to pay Wes, right?
Mm.
He
Yep.
didn't
First and first. Yep.
he didn't want to pay the original writers.
Mm-hmm.
He The person who did the special effects went off to do what was it, American Werewolf in London or something like
Yep.
that,
He sure did. He
right?
did. Yep.
He left, and
Mm-hmm.
then you've got Heather Langenkamp, who was kind of undecided, but they didn't want to pay her more.
Mm-hmm.
They replaced Robert Englund,
Yeah.
right, for the first week, and it is the most terrible. If you've never seen Never Sleep Again, it's on Amazon. It's an
Yeah.
amazing. It's 4 hours. I watch it every time.
Yeah.
But the fact that they really were like, oh, it's just, Bob Shea admits it. He was like, oh, it's just a guy in a rubber mask. We don't have to pay Robert Englund.
Right.
The guy's literally walking around like Frankenstein, and they realized they had to pay this man.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the fact that Bob Shea was even like, I gotta be in the movie.
Mm.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he
Yeah.
just really, like, even
Yeah.
with the first one, everybody knows the first one was production hell. Everybody knows that Wes sold Bob Shea and Nightmare on Elm Street rights because he just wanted to get the movie made. But
Okay.
even like the oatmeal scene in part
Yeah.
1
Mm-hmm.
was Bob Shea's idea, and he would not let go of it. So Wes was like, fine, we'll put it in the movie.
Mm.
Everybody's least favorite scene to direct because it was so gross and messy and hard to reset.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ending, because the
Mhm.
ending was always supposed to be, and I always feel like it was the right ending, was Nancy not believing in Freddy anymore, and he just disappears. That's why we got the door scene. That's the ending. But the fact that Bob wanted a Friday the 13th type of ending, and they ended up with the car.
I fucking hate it. Oh, I hate
Okay,
it.
the car, and poor Ronnie Blake in a fucking blow up doll getting pulled through the window.
Yep.
Bob Shea is the reason why part 2 is not
Yeah.
that great. That's why
Yeah.
when you get to part 3 and
Yeah.
they still were having issues with Bob Shea, and they were still having issues with the director. Like, I always felt like this is a franchise that was destined to fail, and the only reason why it didn't was because of Robert Englund. That's why nobody can talk shit about that man, because had it not been from him, nobody would be doing these movies.
Yep, absolutely. He literally carried it. Okay,
Like when
Robert Englund carried.
When Heather Langenkamp is like, okay, production is so bad, y'all need to kill me.
She was done. Okay.
Right? And the only reason she even did part 7 is because Wes begged her.
Yeah.
Begged her, hey, do this for me. And you know, the one thing I will always champion Wes Craven for, and I feel like no one ever gives that man credit for, you cannot find an actor he's worked with that will say a bad thing about him.
And that is that. You know, that is definitely something that needs to be said, because if people do not like you, they will be vocal about it, but nobody has said a single thing bad about this man.
Never. Everyone always is like, if Wes asks me to do it, I'll do it.
Yep. And you can tell when Wes has his hands on a project.
I just always feel like Wes Craven, and I'm not using this word in a derogatory sense, so please nobody come for me. But there's something about how he approaches things and people and subject that's delicate. And I feel like that's something that most men don't possess. And that's why everything he's like, the things that he does is so beautiful to me. It's almost, Wes Craven is almost Shakespearean to me.
Yes, he is Shakespearean for the horror hotties. Okay.
Yeah, he is. He's very Shakespearean to me.
Yes.
Like, even if you, this is another we're going to have to talk about, because I love it. I don't care what anybody fucking says. This is a good fucking movie, and I will die on that hill. It's fucking Vampire in Brooklyn. There's something.
Yes.
So even though him and Eddie Murphy were having issues, even though it wasn't, and everybody has an issue with Eddie Murphy, let's keep it real.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't the greatest film.
Yeah.
You can tell he handled Angela Bassett with such care, like the queen that she is, because that is some of her best work. I don't care what you say. Angela Bassett in Vampire in Brooklyn is a great representation of her range.
It's a good movie, just period. You know, it's a really, really, really good movie. And like you said, like, it's, with with a lot of Wes Craven movies, he's not one of those directors that has women in it with pointless topless scenes and overly sexual scenes. Like, he treats, like, he really is very, he's with care. He handles.
But I mean, people don't seem to realize this. A, he was a teacher, right? B, he got a degree in psychology, which shows and through his writing.
Yep.
But I'm always going to be biased because he's an Ohio man. Like, he's a Cleveland hometown person. So I'm always going to feel biased to him.
Yep.
But yeah, I feel like that's what part 2 was missing, is that the part 2 was written great. I love it. Great context. There's a delicateness that Wes has that nobody else has. Even in his most brutal, right? Like, even the shit that he wrote in part 3, which, surprise, surprise, he wrote a lot of part 3.
Yep.
Even in his most brutal, it's still done with such class and panache and je ne sais quoi that I could never downplay it. And it just doesn't stack up. But do I love part 2 for what it is? Yes.
I do.
I don't think it's a skip. I always felt like fucking part 4 was a skip to me.
But which one was that? Was that Dream?
That's Dream Master.
Dream Masters. Ugh, yeah. Ugh.
But I will always watch it, like I said, because it's the Lisa Wilcox story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Alice as a character is amazing to me. So I will, even though I find them like a little bit snoozy, I'll always watch it because I feel like Alice is one of those like very underrated final girls.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's why I told you before, like, I will stack Alice up against Nancy any day.
I think so. I think Alice might take it.
Because Alice had a lot on the line.
For me, I was a fan of. I was Heather. Well, not Heather, but Nancy. Love her, but
Yeah, Alice
Mhm.
had a lot on the line in those two movies. And
Yes,
I feel like that
yes,
always like Alice
yes.
to me is a lot more like Sarah Connor
Okay.
in
Yep.
Terminator. Like how
Yep.
Sarah Connor had a lot on the line. Like she
Yep.
didn't have like Alice kind of just didn't have a choice but to fight back
Yes. And she did. And
very well.
she did. Like baby came to fight.
Yeah,
She wanted all the
I
smoke.
can't wait to get into the evolution of Alice in 4 and 5 because
Yeah.
I rewatched those recently and yeah, she
Mm-hmm.
like the glow
Mm-hmm.
up was serious between those
Mm-hmm.
two movies as
Mm-hmm.
characters.
Yep.
For real,
Yep.
for real. But no, part two, I feel like I just wish there was better kills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coach Schneider is probably the only good kill of that movie.
Yeah.
The only real kill, to be honest, because
Yeah.
everything was kind of more like cutaway.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's because production didn't have the budget. I always feel like that's usually what it is.
I know, but you know what? This movie had more of a budget than the first one.
Yeah, but if they spent most of that on just retaining Robert England,
Yeah, yeah. I be forgetting that the budget includes
yeah,
paying people. You know,
yes,
it can't all go to the writers. It can't all go to
no,
production. It can't all go to special effects. You have to budget out this $3 million, and which I feel like even though the budget for this movie was $3 million, they still raked in like 29 million.
I always can tell which scenes were the budget scenes because like
Mm-hmm.
you can't have special effects like
Mm-hmm.
the eyeball
Yeah.
or Freddy's brain, and then when you get
Mm-hmm.
to the end, you got the dogs with the just like the painted on Halloween mask. Like you can tell
Right.
like shit was going
Yeah, they
on
was
here.
like, forget it. We already spent this money.
Right. They had to spend money on like pyro and shit for him
Yeah.
coming out the pool. Like
Yes.
a lot
Mhm.
happened, and they had all the extras that were getting stabbed. That's money,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
With special effects, because
Mhm.
a lot of times like extras get special effects, but those were pretty intense at the time.
Right. Yep. Yep.
But I will always be upset that we never got the Grady kill because there's footage
Oh.
of Grady getting like stabbed and clawed all the way through, but they just didn't use it for
Okay.
whatever reason. But apparently they actually filmed it. Like the actor said they had a prosthetic made, they
Oh
filmed
wow.
it.
Yeah.
But the same thing
Didn't make
happened
the
on
cut.
part 3 with the Wizard Master. His kill was supposed to be more intense and they cut it.
Yeah.
And just like Taryn, right,
Yeah.
with the needles in the arm, her head
Yeah.
was supposed to explode.
Yeah.
That didn't make it. Like
Yeah.
I just, I always question these decisions because it
Maybe
really
they just ran out of time. You ever think that? Because I know sometimes it's like, okay, this runtime, we gotta trim off the fat basically, and they just trim off the
I
shit.
feel like horror movies and sci-fi are always the hardest to film only because things sometimes just don't translate and you have to do reshoots, but doing reshoots includes a lot more money just for a regular actor. But
Oh
then
yeah.
when you're factoring in special effects and they
Mm-hmm.
have to redo the special effects, because I don't think people understand how intense special effects are, where they have to keep, and this is back in the 80s, so they had to have like Polaroids and
Yep.
books and write everything
Yep.
down and make
Yep.
sure everything looked exactly the same. I don't think a lot of times they wanted to reshoot those scenes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know what I mean? But I always feel like we missed out on the Grady scene. Because I mean, I get that having like the father on the other side of the door,
Yeah.
it's intense, but like seeing it,
Yeah.
seeing Jesse
Yeah.
possessed by Freddy, killing the person he loves
Yeah.
would have been better for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you
That.
have to remember, this is still at its base level, which I
Yeah.
think is another thing that we don't ever talk about, is that this is the one movie where Freddy actually possessed a person.
I know, and they never revisited that again.
Which is an awesome concept.
I mean, he can't. Like, if you're gonna have him come into the real world, I would rather see him possessing someone. Like, it just like they. I mean,
like it was there. Like he could have came into the real world had Jesse been possessed at that time. I don't know. It never made sense why they just didn't have Jesse turn into Freddy at the pool party.
No, he could have carried on the leg. Like, oh, they could have did. They could have went in a totally different direction with the franchise had they.
Because I will never understand him like jumping through that window and disappearing. Like
I know, right? Like what? Because I was scared when I saw him. I don't know why possession movies do something for me just because it's scary. You're not in control of someone else. So I was genuinely scared when he possessed him. Like I was just like, I was just like, yes, like this is what horror is made of. Like let's revisit that, but they never
And
did it again.
they kind of sort of did in part 3, but they didn't go like
Yeah.
full balls to the wall with it, because
Nope.
like even with like the puppet part,
Yeah. Yeah.
why didn't he just possess him? Like,
I know.
he was walking through doors and walls and shit.
Yes.
I guess he was possessed by something. So just,
Yes.
But
Oh
yeah,
my
I don't
God.
understand why we've never, like, when
Yep.
people talk about part 2, they never talk about the part that like he actually possessed this kid. Like,
Yep.
he possessed him multiple times. He almost made him kill his sister. He made him kill the coach.
Yep.
And I don't mean like, oh, he kind of blacked out. No, like it was him. The blood was all over him. He had the glove on. Like Jesse was catching bodies, but like we never talk about the fact that Jesse was actually killing people.
Yeah, and that's maybe why the kills weren't as good. They weren't as kind of iconic like we saw later on in different movies. I feel like that's why the kills were a little lame, because they're actually being done by an actual human, not
true.
Trying to take it into consideration. Like, oh yeah, well once you think about the whole picture of the movie, it makes sense.
But you know what? It doesn't make sense for me, because if that's the case, then there shouldn't have been ropes moving by themselves and balls flying out by themselves.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
that. There were things happening in that movie that were supernatural. So why not just keep it that way?
Yeah.
Like, really think about that.
Yeah, they really just didn't go full balls to the wall. Yeah.
Even with the stuff melting, shit catching on fire, that bird that like pecked his daddy's face.
Right.
Like, there were supernatural elements to the movie. They could have just kept like, they give Jesse superhuman strength. Like,
they did. Yep.
I just wish I would have seen more. That's what I'm saying. I wish the kills were a lot fresher.
Yeah.
Because I watched it again, and I was like, man, this didn't age well with the killing.
Yes, a lot of it did. Yeah, a lot on that regard, it did not. A lot of it didn't.
But I appreciated the fact that maybe this is just me. I've always thought this, but seeing Jesse dancing in his room, and I always think that's where Kanye West got the shutter shades from. I don't know why. But I always think, because Kanye's a weird motherfucker like the rest of us, and I always think maybe he used to watch this movie and was like, I'm gonna wear those glasses. I've never seen shutter shades outside of that and Kanye.
Yep. Never. Ever. Nope.
And that was fresh. Like, he had the fresh glittery gold shades on.
Yep.
Just a thought. And then I wish we would have got more with Jesse's sister. I feel like they didn't develop that relationship enough for me.
Okay. Yeah.
Either way, like, had they established more between him and his sister than like the regular, oh, I can't stand you kid sister thing, I think it would have made more sense on like why he was hesitant to kill her.
Right.
Because that is the only time, if you really think about it, in the movie outside of the end, where he took possession back of his body before he did something wrong. So, but you never got the relationship between them that made it make sense. Like him and Lisa, it made sense because he loved her, but it didn't make sense with his sister, like that he took his back over his body before he killed her in her sleep.
Right. Yeah. They didn't develop that relationship.
They developed the relationship between him and his parents more than him and his sister. Yeah, and even then, it wasn't even his parents; it was just him and his dad, which I love. Clue Gallagher is the best part of this entire movie. Everything that came out of his dad's mouth was fucking comedy gold. When that motherfucker is on that ladder and his mom is like, I think we need to take him to therapy. He's like, but that boy needs a goddamn kick in the pants. I pass out, because he said that shit with such fervor. Yeah, like he meant that. Like, as a parent of a teenager,
no F's are given ever.
You know that feeling of like, you ass whoop, like like, you are really taking me, because his dad was not buying into anything being wrong with this kid. He's like, there's something wrong with this motherfucker. At all.
His dad, I don't care. I hear it at all. Nope.
And you have those moments where you look at your kid like, there is something wrong with you. Like when the police brought him home and he was like, drugs.
Instantly he went right to that. Like,
right to the drugs. No setup, no nothing. He's like, you gonna tell me something, motherfucker. You coming home butt naked in the middle of the night?
Right.
What the fuck are you smoking?
Right. I mean, shit. I mean, that would be my first thought too. Like, what is you on?
Because
What
he
what
did
is
like
you
he was
on?
tweaking. He looked like he was tweaking. He did. He
Yep.
came home shivering and shaking and shit.
Right. And then you gotta think of the times at the time, you know,
Say no to drugs.
yeah, just say
Say no.
no. You yell it loud as
So I'm saying, I just like how we all
yeah,
failed there in
yeah.
Nancy Reagan is beyond. Nancy Reagan is somewhere punching the air like Trey. Like she put so much into just say no,
Just yell it loud as you can.
and
Keep on yelling.
nobody is participating in that shit anymore.
Nobody said no.
No,
Hashtag yeah.
nobody said no.
Plot twist. Nobody said no.
That's what I'm saying. She's punching the air right now. She
Yeah.
wasted her life on that campaign. But
Yep.
no,
She
in
wasted her
all
damn time.
seriousness, I wish they would have elaborated a lot. Like even with Jesse and Grady.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I wish, like I said, even though it was great and they did a lot in a short amount of time, I wish they just would have elaborated a little bit more on Jesse's relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the only person that got a chance to like grow their relationship in a real way was Jesse and Lisa.
Yeah. Which hey, I was here for it. I was here for that. You know, it was cool. It was cute.
There were just so many times where I just wanted to be like, girl, stop being so thirsty. But I get it.
Exactly. Yeah. I was it was kind of they had some cringy moments, which is crazy because this movie's runtime was a little bit shorter than the first one.
That's they didn't have a lot of time, clearly.
Yeah, like this movie had a runtime of 87 minutes, but the first one had 91 minutes. Like
But it's Bob Shea, and he wanted a
Bob
sequel
Shay,
every
bruh.
fucking year.
Yeah. Mm.
This was Saw before Saw came out. Like they
Oh
wanted
yeah,
that
for
shit
sure.
every year.
For sure. For sure. Yep. Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. I always have a very special place in my heart for this movie because I
Yeah.
actually saw this movie before I saw the first one.
Oh, really?
Really, yes.
Okay.
This
Okay.
was my introduction to Freddy. So I
Okay.
think that's why I wasn't afraid of him, but B
Mhm.
had such a love for this movie because I saw this one first.
Okay.
It
That makes
happened to
sense.
be on
That
like
makes sense. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
happened to be on like USA or
Yeah.
it was either USA or it was on Monster Vision. It was one of those two. And if you don't know what that is, we grew up in a time where they on the weekends they just showed horror movies.
Man, such a time to be alive. Oh,
I used to watch Bride of Chucky on USA all the
man.
time.
Man, all
But
the
USA would
time.
have like a double feature every weekend.
Yes.
Then you had
Yes.
TNT Monster Vision. And
Yes.
then,
Oh
of
my
course,
God.
now everybody knows Joe Bob Briggs now
Mhm.
because, he's back in the game and has been for quite some time. But
Yeah.
we got to experience Joe Bob Briggs in real time when he was
Yeah.
still young.
Yep. Full of life.
He's still full of piss and vinegar. I'm not a big
Yes.
fan of Darcy. I'm just
Yes.
going to keep it real. Like,
Yeah.
I've tried to watch the new ones, and I still love Joe Bob. He's still great at what he does, but
Yeah.
I am not a fan of Darcy. I just,
Mhm. Mhm.
but yeah, OG Joe Bob Briggs was like
Yeah, such a
him,
gold. I feel like that was the golden time of TV.
him and Elvira. Like y'all, and y'all don't even understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't even want me to go into my Elvira bag.
Right.
I still watch Elvira movies now.
Listen,
I still
Elvira, she also was a trendsetter too.
I still watch like
Mhm.
her movies are so funny
Mhm.
and campy and
Mhm.
hilarious. But she was just one of the like when I think of what I see myself as,
Yeah.
that's who I see myself as. Like if I was like
Yeah.
I toy with the idea of hosting my own horror show
Mhm.
all the time.
Yep.
All the time. And I'm like, you know what? I could bring back the Elvira shit. I could
Yep. Yep.
if I had the proper support. But I just feel like, yeah, like we got to experience that in real time. So yeah,
In
I
real
actually think watched this on or was it or in AMC also.
AMC, yeah, they were.
It was one of those channels, but that was the first one I had ever watched.
Yep. Yep.
Because in my house was Friday the 13th, people.
Right.
We didn't really start watching Freddy Krueger until I got into Freddy Krueger.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
My first introduction to this franchise was the third one.
okay.
The third, well, it was like simultaneously third and the fourth one.
Yeah.
Third and the fourth one. Because I do remember I remember seeing Boys in the Hood first, and then when I went to Saw 3, and I was like, oh, that's the dad. I did forgot Larry, Lawrence
Yeah.
Fishburne. Larry Fishburne. Like I didn't, just realizing, like you said, in real time of like just being in the moment of like, this is my first introduction. It's like, oh, okay, scary as hell, but
Yeah.
2 was always skipped over, even in my house. And my dad was like a horror. My mom really wasn't into horror that much, but my dad was always horror, sci-fi.
That's the thing, like, okay, so this is how it happened for me.
Mhm.
I saw because we gotta remember this is the 90s. So I saw the trailer for New Nightmare.
Right.
And I was like, Dad, have you heard this movie? Because we used to go to the movies in Hollywood Video all the time.
Yeah.
So my dad was like, oh, that's just Freddy Krueger. That's like, he been around, girl.
Yep.
And I happened to catch 2 on TV, and I was like, oh, this is Freddy Krueger. Let me watch, because I know we're going to go see New Nightmares. My dad actually took me to see New Nightmare.
Okay. Yeah.
So I watched 2, and then I was like, okay, now I got to watch the rest of them.
Yep.
And I'll never forget, because they had them at Hollywood Video, and I had some money, and I asked my dad for the rest, and I was like, I want to watch all of them.
Yeah.
And I had already seen 2, and he was like, okay, well, you pay for these, and I'll pay for these.
Yep.
And we can watch them all this weekend. And we sat the whole weekend, Friday night.
Yep.
And we watched 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
And
then we went to go see New Nightmare like a month later. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm into this.
Yeah.
And then once I realized that, like, okay, this is Wes Craven and I like his movies, then Scream came out. So it was a domino effect for me.
It definitely set the tone. It definitely set the tone for like, okay, this guy, we need to, like, when I hear the name Wes Craven, like, it was always like associated with something good.
Yeah. And my dad was a big Toxic Avenger fan and Swamp Thing. So like we had seen those movies too.
Oh yeah.
And then that's when I got into Last House on the Left, which I don't even know why my dad let me watch that shit. And The Hills Have Eyes. Like, it was just so many things.
Oh my gosh.
But I feel like 2 is very special. I feel like the real fans, and I don't even want to say the real, I hate drawing a line, but I feel like if you are a real like stan of something, you even like the not so good ones, you can find appreciation in it.
Absolutely. Yep.
Like, okay, how I feel about part 2, and only you're gonna catch this tea, is how I feel about Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Like, everybody can have their critique that it's not the best, but you can't say it's not good.
Exactly. Yep. I agree. Like I said, I was 2 was always the one that got skipped over for me. But when I went back to watch it, I felt like an asshole for not watching it sooner, not appreciating what it was. And even when I did watch it, I still didn't feel the feels that I felt like I felt for 3 and 4. And even 5, so I just, but just,
you know what though? I feel like
it's like it marinates and it gets better with time.
I feel like part 2 is a very adult movie.
Absolutely. I feel like that's probably why I didn't get a lot of it.
And I think that's what it was marketed towards teens, but it's very adult.
Yep. It has so many adult things going on, like that only adults are going to get. So now that I feel like I'm fully like a grown-up and I've been a grown-up for a while now, I really like it. That's why I'm like, why is this not shown more on TV? Like, why is this not reruns on and DVD? Like, why can I go through any streaming app and find this movie? I want to watch it.
I feel like this is the one that's going to get lost in media. And that's why I own it, because I just feel like this is one of the ones that everybody skips over. Plus, when you watch part 2 and then you go and watch the Scream Queen documentary, you have such a great appreciation for Mark Patton and everything that he went through. Because my God, he went through a lot for this movie just for people to like act like it doesn't exist, and it's so not fair.
It's not fair at all.
But the fact that they were playing that a lot of people played Nightmare on Elm Street 2 in like the gay clubs is like. it's gonna live on for the
Yeah,
people that are open to receiving it.
absolutely. It has become a cult classic
Yeah.
since then. So there is a a large number of people who absolutely love this film, rave about it, tell everybody about it,
Hmm.
and for good reasons. Like it's a really good movie. I
I mean, my kids have
cannot
seen it,
say.
and this is the one that like Marcus is afraid of the most.
Mhm,
This
mhm.
one, this was the one that really like made him not like horror movies anymore
Yep,
because it scared him.
yep, absolutely. Woo,
Yeah, like
scared the
Freddy
hell
is
out.
he's very scary in this movie.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is before part three, because part three is when we got all the catchphrases. So put that
Mhm.
in the context that part one, it was scary, but you didn't see him. Part
Yep.
three is when he got funny. So part two, I feel like is his most visceral.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like and that's why I said I wish the kills would have just been more because he really killed. He
Yeah.
quote unquote killed a lot of people. You just didn't see it.
Yeah. This was the movie where this is the closest to human
Yeah,
for that we gonna get to for Freddy. Like this is the closest to being in the real world, even though he did come to the real world for a little bit. This is the closest that the franchise ever got to that because we saw in 3, 4, and 5. I personally watching 3, 4, and 5, I thought they was all kind of made together. Like they
right.
were filmed, written all to be like a kind of like a series
A trilogy.
within themselves. So I'm sure when we get to talking about it, we will definitely dive into how it kind of morphed
Yeah.
and grew legs
And
and
you know what the
became.
other thing too about part two that I need people to start talking about? Just
Mhm.
just the last point, and then I'll be done. Why is it that we never talk about the fact that Jesse and Lisa got killed in the end?
I know, right? We
Like
just,
this isn't like implied. Like
yeah,
they
literally,
died. Like
literally, yep,
the best friend got a fist through her chest. Them motherfuckers didn't make it.
yeah, yeah. Which was terrifying. That should have been the most terrifying thing right there.
Yeah, like we know Nancy didn't make it, but like Jesse and Lisa did not make it
Mm-hmm.
off that
Mm-hmm.
bus.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we just gloss like right over it. Right
Yeah,
over it.
they did
Mm-hmm.
not make it. And I
Yep.
don't care what anybody says, they didn't make it.
Nope.
You're not going to tell me that they got out of that.
Yeah, because I mean, with the thing with this, the thing with the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, if somebody lives, they milk that. Like they
Right.
milk that to its core. So if you don't see that person again,
And they never talk about Jesse again. So I have to
never.
imagine that he's
He's
dead.
not referenced. They don't reference anything
No.
that happened in 2 ever again in the franchise. Ever again. Ever again. Like that's why I say 2 is in its own lane by itself. It's definitely a movie that's in its lane, and it has remained in its lane pretty consistent.
Yeah.
With like I said, it's a really, really good follow-up.
Yeah.
But just not it's not with when you watch and see what the franchise became, you see that one is clearly different for a reason.
Yeah.
So I really like it. I really like it, really enjoy it. I'm like you, I'm about to get that on physical copy because it is going to be something that's going to be a high ticket item later in the.
Yeah, they're gonna stop pressing too for sure.
Absolutely. That's gonna be the first one that gets stopped.
Yeah.
For
Two
sure. Like for sure.
and six are gonna stop being pressed. I
Yeah.
can assure you of that.
Yep. So I'm gotta make sure I gotta snatch that up before that happens.
But
So
yeah, I feel like that was really all I wanted to cover.
yeah. How do you what would your, I know, did you say your rating for it would be? What would your rating be for it?
No, my rating for this is definitely like a 6.
Okay.
I don't feel like it's the one of the strongest contenders,
Mhm.
but it definitely is in the top 5. It
Oh, yeah.
definitely needs to be discussed more, and it needs to be respected a lot more than it is.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Great. So for number 3, I see that number 3 is I feel like the later 80s horror starts to kind of change again. And that's why I love the horror franchise so much, because it's ever evolving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what worked in 1981 ain't probably going to be the same in 1987, which is the
Mm-hmm.
year that Nightmare on Elm Street 3 came out. So this is like our time. We were born, getting born,
Yes.
thought about, you know, we was on our way into the world. And to watch this movie and to know, for me, it was my first time watching any kind of Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Is one of my faves. It's one.
Yeah, this is like where we established a lot with Freddy that we love now. This is Nancy's swan song, her dad's swan song. This is when we get Amanda Kruger.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we get Hypnosil. This
Mm-hmm.
is where we get the first Black person in the franchise.
Yes.
We get one of the few disabled characters.
Yep.
Multiple disabled characters, because we
Yes.
not only had Will, but we also had the kid that didn't talk.
Yep.
Right? So
Oh my
two
gosh.
disabled people.
There's so many kills. Oh my gosh. The
We
kills.
got a drug addict. Like, it was like, this is to me, this is like the Captain Planet.
Yeah.
Captain Planet.
But
So
they're like the misfits. You know, in a way,
yeah.
they're like the misfits.
And this is also where we get the first real hardcore evidence that most of these kids were getting ruled out as suicides, which I think was an important conversation, but we'll save that for next time, because that's definitely something from that movie that we don't talk about enough.
Mm-hmm. The undertone of suicide,
yes,
you know, is something that was so glossed over.
Very.
That when you like really think about it, like, damn.
Yeah, no, this is an awesome movie. I can't wait to get into it. Till next time, but it's not going to be next week because I will be too busy.
Yeah, next week, we got to we'll discuss it. We'll be back.
Yeah, I got some shit going on, so we will discuss that
next week. So, you know, put a pause, take some time to binge watch the other stuff.
Yes, get caught up on part 3.
Sure. Yep. So we got a lot, but know that when we do talk about Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, I will be excited. But I'm excited. I'm excited about the whole franchise anyway, but
I mean, at some point I'm going to sing the song and it's not going to be sung very well.
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't understand why people don't appreciate Dokken more. But that song bangs. I don't care.
Yep.
And being that it was the first ever movie on a VHS that came with a music video.
Yes. Oh my God.
It's historic. You have to sing Dream Warriors when you talk about Dream Warriors.
So good. Did you see where I tagged you in that post where Don Mancini said he would like to do a Freddy and Chucky movie?
I did.
Like, Don, I feel like the boat has passed with that.
Well, he's writing a new Chucky movie that's supposed to coincide with the TV show. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you know, I think a lot of things are good in theory as concepts. Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to translate. First of all, we are in like we're in like a reboot renaissance. You know,
I just feel like Chucky needs to stay in Hackensack where he belongs. Like I already have checked out with him being at the White House and getting old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I've already checked
hard. Baby, I am struggling.
Yeah, I feel like they have rode Chucky bareback for far too long.
Baby, I'm struggling. Like, when he started getting older, I was just like, what are we doing here?
Like, I didn't think anything could ever make me dislike Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah.
But they're pushing it.
They are pushing it. We right at that line. We is right at that line. So
this is not the Tiffany that I know.
Yeah, it's kind of spiraling.
But they need to just leave this alone. I need them to just either they're gonna do an Elm Street TV series or they're gonna do another Elm Street movie and leave it at that.
Yeah, because now it's like everything is I feel like it's a cash grab now. It's gonna be a cash grab of like nostalgia.
I just don't
Nostalgia
think
is they're trying to profit off of nostalgia right now, and as
I
much as
just
I
don't
personally
think that
love
everything needs to be Godzilla versus Mothra. Like, I don't.
it. Yeah.
Everything doesn't need to be that. Everything, sometimes shit can just stand by itself. Like,
It can. It should. It really should.
okay. We already had our moment with the Universal monsters in their versus movies. Let it go.
Mm-hmm.
It's over.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. And
Yeah.
that's how I feel about it. But my battery is about to die.
Yeah, so we are gonna put a pin in that right there. Thank you everybody for watching. I see we got a heart. Somebody liked the
Yes, and as usual, we will have this uploaded to YouTube. We're gonna have a real conversation with y'all, because we might just have to like cut the Facebook streams,
right.
because we want y'all over there.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. We might have to pop in and have a real come to Jesus moment. But either way, it's gonna be uploaded on YouTube for the rewatchability. We know everybody can't be on Facebook 24/7, but you can always be on YouTube with it in the background. So if you missed anything, any tea, if you feel like you want to catch up and just watch our older videos, you can do that as well.
Stay there. I always say, go watch Tales from the Hood. Go watch that one. Go watch Swarm.
Yes.
Go watch Candyman. Like, there's a lot of them that are my favorite. Like, I go rewatch them and be like, bitch.
And I make these playlists. I make playlists for our franchises. So this will be under the Nightmare on Elm Street playlist, as well as the rest of them. And we hope we see you there.
Y'all have a good night. Peace.
All right. Bye.